Think about what it really feels like to wake up at 5 in the morning, year after year, to build a life centered around a number. You head into a demanding corporate office or log into your remote workspace, your mind already racing with deadlines. You skip family dinners because a deal needs to close. You postpone that trip to Italy or the Pacific Crest Trail because this quarter is just too critical for your career advancement. You maximize your 401k, you carefully research index funds, and you choose the modest option at every single turn. You are doing exactly what society, your parents, and every mainstream personal finance guru tells you to do. You are being responsible. Let's say you follow this path perfectly for 40 years. By the time you reach age 65, you cross the finish line. You look at your investment accounts, and you see a staggering, beautiful $3 million. You have won the game of traditional finance. You are completely free. But then, the unexpected happens. Just 3 years into your hard-earned retirement, at age 68, your body gives out. A sudden medical diagnosis or an unforeseen health event catches you completely off guard, and you pass away. When your family and your attorneys gather in a quiet room to look over your estate, they discover that you left behind $2.8 million. To the world, this looks like an extraordinary triumph. Your friends look at your life and say you left a remarkable legacy. But if we peel back the emotional layers and look at this purely through the lens of human math, it is a profound, irreversible tragedy. Think about what that $2.8 million actually represents. It is not just money. It is a physical manifestation of your irreplaceable youth, your vital energy, and your finite time on this earth. To leave $2.8 million on the table means you spent your 20s working 80-hour weeks for money you never touched. It means you missed your children's formative years in your 30s for cash that sat completely stagnant in a brokerage account. It means you traded away your peak physical years, the years when your knees did not ache, your energy was boundless, and your sense of adventure was alive, for digital numbers on a screen that you took with you to the grave. In terms of real, lived human experience, you worked nearly 30 years of your life for absolutely free. You gave your life energy to a corporation, and in return, you received paper that you never converted into anything meaningful. This is the core paradox of traditional wealth accumulation, and it is the exact tragedy that hedge fund manager Bill Perkins exposes in his masterful, deeply disruptive philosophy, Die with Zero. Most financial advice is built on a dangerous, unquestioned premise that the ultimate metric of a successful life is the size of your net worth when you stop working. We are conditioned to feel a deep sense of security watching our balances rise, completely ignoring the fact that money is merely a medium of exchange. It has no value when you are 6 feet under. Therefore, the true goal of financial planning shouldn't be to maximize your wealth. It must be to maximize your lifetime human fulfillment. If you die with $1 million in the bank, that is not a financial victory. It is a systemic miscalculation. It means you oversaved, you overworked, and you vastly underlived. Today, we are going deep into the execution blueprint of Die with Zero. If you are a professional in your 20s, 30s, or 40s trying to figure out how to balance your ambition with your limited time, this video is designed to completely deconstruct and rebuild the way you look at your career, your savings, and your mortality. We are moving past the basic summaries to give you a comprehensive, long-form exploration of the mathematical models and psychological shifts required to extract every single drop of joy from your life before your time runs out. Take a deep breath, settle in, and let's change the way you look at wealth forever. Before we unpack the foundational pillars of lifetime optimization, if you are a professional tracking deep execution-level blueprints for elite wealth, real-world productivity, and a grounded mindset, take a brief moment to hit that subscribe button and join our community here on the Paper Trail. We drop these deep-dive, high-impact breakdowns every single Tuesday and Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern to help you master the psychological and financial systems of the world's sharpest minds. Let's get into the frameworks. Core lessons from Die with Zero. Pillar 1. The principle of life optimization and the fulfillment curve. To truly understand how to optimize your life, we have to look at the relationship between your money and your capacity for joy. Perkins introduces a vital visual framework known as the fulfillment curve. Traditional economic theory tells us that as our wealth increases, our life satisfaction should follow a similar upward trajectory. But in reality, human biology and psychology dictate that this curve hits a very specific point of diminishing returns, peaks, and then drops off sharply. Money is nothing more than a conversion tool. Its entire value lies in its ability to be systematically exchanged for experiences that provide meaning, fulfillment, laughter, and connection. When you are 24 years old, your ability to convert a single dollar into a core memory is at an absolute lifetime high. If you scrape together $2,000 to go backpacking across Western Europe, sleeping on train floors and eating street food, that experience can completely rewrite your identity. It teaches you independence, it introduces you to lifelong friends, and it gives you a perspective that shapes every decision you make for the next 50 years. Now, contrast that with an 84-year-old multimillionaire. If that exact same person spends $2,000 or even $20,000 to take a luxury cruise through the Mediterranean, the return on investment is fundamentally lower. They might be physically restricted, unable to walk the cobblestone streets, tired by 8 p.m., and viewing the world through a thick layer of insulation. The money spent is higher, but the actual fulfillment extracted is a fraction of what it was in their youth. When you spend your prime years on financial autopilot, saving a dogmatic 15 or 20% of your income while turning down spontaneous adventures, you are making a massive mistake. You are operating under the delusion that a dollar is worth the same at age 70 as it is at age 25. It isn't. By hoarding your resources during your high conversion years to spend them during your low conversion years, you are actively robbing yourself of lifetime satisfaction. To optimize your life, you must view your resources not as a static scoreboard, but as a dynamic fuel source that must be deliberately spent down before the engine stops running. Pillar 2. The concept of memory dividends. In the world of investing, we worship compound interest. We look at charts of the stock market showing how a single dollar invested in an index fund at age 20 doubles over and over again until it becomes a massive mountain of capital by retirement. It is a beautiful mathematical reality. But Perkins argues that traditional finance completely ignores an equally powerful compounding force, the memory dividend. When you pay for a profound experience early in your life, you are not just purchasing a moment of fleeting pleasure. You are acquiring a permanent emotional asset that pays regular, recurring dividends for the rest of your existence. Let's map out exactly how an experience compounds over time. Imagine you take a month off in your late 20s to go on a deep-sea diving expedition or drive across the American Southwest with your closest friends. In the immediate aftermath, you have the direct joy of the event. But look at what happens in the years that follow. 1 year later, you meet up with those friends for dinner. You laugh about the time your car broke down in the desert, and you experience a rush of nostalgia. 10 years later, when you are stressed out with corporate responsibilities, you look at a photo from that trip on your desk, and it brings a smile to your face, lowering your blood pressure. 25 years later, you tell the stories of those adventures to your teenage children, using those memories to inspire them to live boldly. You paid for the experience exactly once, but you collected a memory dividend hundreds of times over the course of 4 decades. If you choose to delay that exact same experience until you are 65 years old because you want to keep your head down and maximize your savings, you are fundamentally truncating your returns. You might still enjoy the trip, but you only have a tiny window of 10 or 15 years to collect those memory dividends before you pass away. You missed out on decades of psychological compound interest. When you look at life through this precise analytical lens, oversaving in your youth isn't safe or prudent. It is an incredibly costly decision that permanently reduces the total net fulfillment of your existence. Pillar 3. The true meaning of die with zero. Let's pause for a moment and directly address the intense psychological resistance that arises when people first encounter the phrase die with zero. It triggers an immediate survival response. Your brain instantly starts spinning worst-case scenarios. What if I live to be 100 years old? What if hyperinflation destroys the economy? What if I experience a catastrophic medical event in my 80s and end up bankrupt on the street? Perkins is a hedge fund manager who understands risk mitigation at the highest level. He's not suggesting that you spend your very last dollar on your 65th birthday and cross your fingers that your heart stops beating by midnight. Dying with zero is an operational framework, a target state where your total lifetime wealth perfectly aligns with your total lifetime consumption and distribution. The fear of running out of money causes the average professional to vastly overinsure against an incredibly low probability event. They work an extra 5 or 10 years, accumulating an extra $500,000 just in case, completely blind to the fact that they are trading a guaranteed loss of their remaining youth for a highly unlikely hypothetical insurance policy. To break free from this mental trap, you must learn to utilize modern financial instruments that are specifically designed to transfer longevity risk away from your shoulders. Tools like immediate single-premium annuities or late-stage longevity insurance allow you to hand over a specific lump sum to an institutional carrier in exchange for a guaranteed, lifelong monthly income stream. This completely eliminates the math problem of outliving your capital. Once your survival baseline, your housing, and your medical insurance are completely locked in and guaranteed by an institutional system, every single dollar you possess above that threshold is officially surplus. Keeping that surplus cash locked up in a brokerage account out of vague, unquantified fear is not wisdom. It is psychological inertia. It is an inability to transition from the mindset of a builder to the mindset of a living, breathing human being. Pillar 4. Time buckets versus bucket lists. Almost every ambitious professional has some version of a bucket list. It is usually a messy, unorganized note on their phone, or a vague mental list of things they want to do someday when they finally have the time and money. You want to hike the Inca Trail, you want to learn to play acoustic guitar, you want to attend the World Cup, and you want to spend a winter skiing in Utah. But Perkins points out that standard bucket lists have a fatal systemic flaw. They treat your future self as a static, unchanging entity. They assume that your 65-year-old self will have the exact same physical capabilities, energy levels, and desires as your 35-year-old self. To fix this, you need to abandon the bucket list entirely and replace it with a highly structured grid called time buckets. Instead of a generic list for an imaginary future, you take a piece of paper and divide your remaining years into distinct 5-year chunks. Ages 30 to 35, 35 to 40, 40 to 45, and so on, all the way to 80. Then, you take every single experience you want to have in your lifetime and categorize them into these boxes based on an objective assessment of your biological clock. When you map your desires onto this biological timeline, the reality is incredibly sobering. If your dream is to take your children on an intense, multi-week wilderness camping trip, that goal does not just require money. It requires a highly specific intersection of your physical health and your children's ages. That window is not wide open until you die. It is a narrow 5-year gate that closes permanently the moment your kids turn 18 and leave for college, or the moment your lower back can no longer handle sleeping on solid ground. Activities like scuba diving, learning high-impact sports, or navigating chaotic international cities belong squarely in your early time buckets. Activities like historical research, landscape photography, fine dining, or building a beautiful garden belong in your later time buckets. When you look at your life through this organized framework, the illusion of infinite time completely evaporates. You realize that you don't have 40 years to live your dreams. For certain experiences, you have a highly volatile 5-year window. And if you choose to spend that specific window working late at the office to earn an extra bonus, you haven't delayed the experience. You have canceled it forever. Pillar 5. The 3 golden vectors: money, time, and health. To master the art of life optimization, you have to understand that your existence is governed by the constant interplay of 3 finite variables: money, time, and health. Perkins refers to these as the three golden vectors of human experience. The ultimate tragedy of human existence is that under normal circumstances, these three variables are almost never naturally in alignment. They are fundamentally out of phase across a standard corporate lifestyle. Let's break down the mathematical asymmetry of these vectors as you move through time. In your youth, ages 18 to 30, your time vector is wide open and your health vector is at its absolute peak performance. Your body recovers instantly, your energy is boundless, and your capacity for adventure is limitless. However, your money vector is at zero. You are broke, scraping by, and struggling to build a foundation. In your middle age, ages 30 to 55, your money vector begins to scale rapidly, your career hits its stride, your salary increases, and your net worth begins to look substantial. But to achieve this, your time vector completely collapses. You are enslaved to a corporate calendar, meetings, and family obligations. Simultaneously, your health vector begins its slow, irreversible downward descent. The first signs of aging and physical limitations start to appear. In your old age, ages 60 and beyond, your retirement arrives and the vectors shift again. Your time vector is completely restored and your bank account is full of accumulated capital. But your health vector has hit a critically low point. Your mobility is compromised, your stamina is diminished, and your physical capacity to convert that massive pool of wealth into high-level experiences is severely restricted. The entire game of deliberate life optimization is about recognizing this structural asymmetry and intentionally making trades to keep these three vectors in balance. If you are a 35-year-old professional with a rising income but zero time, you must stop hoarding cash. You need to aggressively spend your money to buy back your time and preserve your health. This means paying a premium to outsource mundane tasks, hiring house cleaners, utilizing meal delivery services, or paying for direct flights instead of layovers, even if it technically pushes back your retirement date by a year or two. Why? Because you are trading a highly abundant asset, money, to rescue a critically endangered asset, time during your peak health years. Money can always be earned back later in life. Your 30s cannot. Pillar 6. The mechanics of giving to your kids and charity. Early. Whenever you bring up the philosophy of dying with zero to high-earning professionals, they almost always point to their family as the ultimate justification for their wealth hoarding. They say, "I can't possibly spend down my assets to zero. I love my children. I need to leave a $2 million inheritance behind so that my kids have a massive safety net and a head start in life." It sounds deeply noble, parental, and responsible. But Perkins looks at this argument through cold, hard demographic data, and he completely tears it to shreds. If you examine the actuarial tables and wealth statistics across the Western world, the average age at which an adult child receives an inheritance from their deceased parents is between 55 and 65 years old. Let's think about that reality with profound clarity. By the time your child is 58 years old, their life is already largely set. They have already gone through the stressful years of trying to climb the corporate ladder. They have already bought their home. They have already paid for their own children's educations. And they're starting to look at their own retirement. When a $500,000 inheritance drops into the lap of a 58-year-old, it does not change their life. It doesn't alleviate their stress. It simply sits in their own stagnant brokerage account, compounding until they pass it down to their own kids at age 60. The utility of that dollar is incredibly low. Now, let's look at the true peak utility window of a dollar for a young human being. It occurs between the ages of 26 and 35. This is the exact decade where your children are facing maximum financial pressure and structural friction. They are trying to gather a down payment for their first home. They are taking massive risks to launch a new business venture. They are drowning under the weight of student loans, or they are navigating the immense expenses of raising a newborn child. $100,000 given to your child at age 28 is a life-altering event. It can rescue them from decades of interest payments, give them the security to take a career risk that pays off massively, or allow them to spend more time with their young family. That exact same $100,000 delivered via your will 30 years later changes absolutely nothing about their daily reality. If your goal is to truly maximize the positive impact of your wealth on the people you love, you must decouple your giving from your death. Calculate the exact amount of money you want to give to your children or your favorite charitable causes and distribute it to them deliberately while you are still alive. Not only does the money do exponentially more good when its utility is at its peak, but you get to receive the ultimate emotional return on investment. You get to be alive to watch the joy, relief, and transformation that your life energy created. Pillar 7. Finding your net worth peak. At this point, you're probably asking yourself how to operationally execute this strategy without driving yourself off a financial cliff. It requires calculating a highly specific metric that traditional wealth management completely ignores: your net worth peak. In the standard financial narrative, your net worth is supposed to follow a constant, unbroken upward trajectory. You save, you compound, and the graph goes straight up until the day you hand in your 2 weeks' notice, at which point you live entirely off the interest while keeping the principal perfectly intact until your death. Perkins argues that if your goal is to optimize your life and avoid wasting your labor, your net worth must peak and begin a deliberate, controlled downward trajectory much earlier than you think, often 10 to 15 years before your actual expected retirement date. Your net worth peak is the precise mathematical intersection where your currently accumulated assets, when combined with your remaining lifetime earning capacity and adjusted for inflation, are officially sufficient to cover your survival needs and your desired lifestyle experiences for the rest of your statistical lifespan. To find this point, you have to run a realistic calculation of your life expectancy based on health metrics, determine your baseline annual survival cost, and add the estimated costs of the time buckets you mapped out earlier. Once you hit that peak number, you have to make a radical counterintuitive psychological pivot from the phase of accumulation to the phase of decumulation. Instead of continuing to stack capital and feel proud of your growing portfolio, you must intentionally begin the process of spending down your principal. You must start systematically deploying that wealth into high-value experiences, health interventions, and early giving. For an ambitious professional who has spent 20 years finding their self-worth in a rising bank balance, watching that number go down for the first time is an incredibly terrifying, uncomfortable experience. It feels irresponsible. But you must realize that continuing to hoard capital past your net worth peak means you are working for absolutely zero return. You are voluntarily trading your remaining days on Earth to accumulate paper that will never be used. It takes immense courage to stop building the tower and start living in it, but it is the only way to avoid the tragedy of a wasted life. Pillar 8. Bold asymmetry and mastering risk management. The final pillar of the Die with Zero philosophy forces us to confront our deep subconscious biases regarding risk. As human beings, our evolutionary biology wires us to overinsure against worst-case scenarios while completely ignoring the guaranteed risks staring us directly in the face. We are terrified of the unknown. We worry about market downturns, political instability, and extreme late-stage healthcare costs. To protect ourselves against these abstract fears, we take the safe route. We stay in corporate jobs that drain our souls, we accumulate mountains of cash we don't need, and we repeatedly tell ourselves that we will focus on our health and our relationships next year. But let's look at the math of risk asymmetry with absolute intellectual honesty. What is the actual statistical probability that an educated, highly capable professional watching this video will end up completely destitute, starving on the street in old age? It is incredibly close to zero. You have a massive array of safety nets: your professional skills, your social networks, your ability to downsize your lifestyle, your government systems, and your capacity to adapt to changing environments. If things go wrong, you can adjust your behavior. Now, let's contrast that with the alternative risk. What is the probability that your physical health, your vitality, and your functional mobility will decline as you age? It is 100%. It is an absolute, immutable biological law. Your body will degrade, your energy levels will drop, and your time on this planet will come to an end. When you choose to oversave out of a vague sense of fear, you are making a completely irrational financial trade. You are willingly accepting a 100% guaranteed loss, the permanent, unrecoverable sacrifice of your youth, your 30s, your 40s, and your prime physical years to insure against a highly unlikely, low-probability hypothetical risk. True, elite risk management is not about hoarding the maximum amount of cash out of fear. It is about optimizing your choices under conditions of absolute uncertainty. It means looking at your life expectancy with clear eyes, securing insurance against catastrophic health events, wrapping your longevity risk in institutional tools, and then boldly, aggressively deploying the rest of your capital into the world. Stop living your life as if you have an infinite supply of days. The clock is ticking, the battery is draining, and the ultimate risk is not running out of money. It is running out of time. Bill Perkins's Die with Zero is a radical, deeply necessary manifesto that shatters the fear-based, dogmatic structures of traditional personal finance. It stands as a powerful reminder that our time, our health, and our youth are highly perishable commodities that decay with every single setting sun. True wealth is never found in the number at the bottom of a brokerage statement. It is found in the total sum of your lived experiences, your shared memories, and the meaningful impact you make on the world around you. If you are a professional working hard to build your future right now, do not fall into the trap of waiting until you are 65 to begin the journey of real living. Run the math, build your time buckets, distribute your gifts early, and understand that every single dollar you leave behind in a bank account when your heart stops beating represents a piece of your precious, irreplaceable life energy that you chose to completely waste. If this long-form breakdown completely rewired the way you view your financial trajectory and your timeline on this planet, please take a quick second to hit that like button. Drop a comment below, letting me know exactly which 5-year time bucket you are navigating right now and what major life experience you are actively choosing to prioritize this year. Don't forget to click on our Full Wealth and Mindset playlist, appearing right here on your screen to continue mastering your execution blueprints. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next breakdown right here on the paper trail.